The Trail of Tears is a dark chapter in the history of Native American communities in the United States. The term refers to the forced relocation of thousands of Native Americans from their ancestral lands to Indian Territory, which is now Oklahoma, during the 1830s. The policy was sparked by the Indian Removal Act of 1830, which authorized the federal government to negotiate treaties with Native American tribes for their land in the southeastern United States. Many tribes resisted these efforts, but they were ultimately forced from their homes and lands at gunpoint, with devastating consequences for their communities. The Trail of Tears affected several major Native American groups, including the Cherokee, Muskogee, Creek, Seminole, Chickasaw, and Choctaw. These tribes had long-standing ties to the lands they were being forced to leave, and they had developed distinct cultures and societies that were deeply integrated into the natural rhythms of the land. But the federal government saw these resources as valuable territory for white settlers, and they were willing to use force to get what they wanted. The impact of the Trail of Tears on Native American communities was profound and long-lasting. Many Native Americans died along the way, as they were forced to walk hundreds of miles to reach Indian Territory. Estimates vary, but it is believed that as many as 4,000 people died due to disease, exposure, and starvation during this period. Entire communities were uprooted and torn apart, as families and friends were separated and forced to relocate to unfamiliar territory. The trauma of this experience left deep scars on Native American communities, which have persisted for generations. One of the most devastating consequences of the Trail of Tears was the loss of Native American culture and identity. The forced relocation of Native Americans meant that they were forced to abandon many of their cultural traditions and practices, as they were separated from the land and the resources that sustained their way of life. For example, many tribes relied on hunting and fishing as a means of subsistence, but they were unable to do so in the unfamiliar and often hostile territory they were forced to inhabit. This led to food shortages and other forms of hardship that further eroded the fabric of Native American society. The Trail of Tears also had long-lasting economic impacts on Native American communities. The forced relocation of Native Americans meant that they were often placed in areas of land that were less fertile and less suitable for agriculture than the lands they had been forced to leave. As a result, many Native Americans struggled to make a living in their new homes, which hindered their ability to build sustainable and prosperous communities. The lack of access to resources also made it difficult for Native Americans to maintain traditional forms of craftsmanship and other cultural practices, which further eroded the vitality of their communities. Despite these challenges, Native American communities have persevered in the wake of the Trail of Tears. They have adapted to new ways of life and have worked to preserve their cultures and traditions, even in the face of significant adversity. For example, many Native Americans have embraced new forms of agriculture, such as using sustainable farming practices, and have found ways to incorporate traditional practices into modern-day life. They have also worked to build economic self-sufficiency, through initiatives such as tribal-owned businesses and casinos. In recent years, there has been a growing recognition of the devastating impact of the Trail of Tears on Native American communities. This has led to efforts to acknowledge and address this history, including the creation of memorials and other forms of public recognition of the tragedy. There have also been efforts to address the economic and social disparities that continue to impact Native American communities today, such as access to healthcare and education. Overall, the Trail of Tears is a tragic reminder of the deep wounds inflicted upon Native American communities by misguided government policies. Although the impact of this tragedy has been felt for generations, Native American communities have shown remarkable resilience and strength in the face of adversity. By acknowledging and learning from this history, we can work to create a more just and equitable society that honors the contributions of all its citizens, regardless of their cultural background or history.